Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports, your number one Philadelphia Eagles show, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother?
Doing well. Russell Wilson finally in the NFC East.
Yeah, baby.
Many years the Eagles would have wished that happened in Philadelphia, but
I wonder if the Giants had any spite on their mind when they signed. And they've heard all for the last 10 years how bad the Eagles wanted them, and they said, "Let's get him. Let's get him."
Well, yeah, it's not the same now.
No.
They're happy they got him now, but yeah, interesting player because this organization really, really wanted him, and twice, by the way.
Yep.
And yeah, and it would have worked out probably early on. I think there's little doubt that he would have been a success here, but at this stage of his career, not the same player, obviously, but still an upgrade for the Giants if you look at it that way.
Yeah, well, no doubt about it. The NFC East did get a little better. I don't know how much better, but I mean, they signed Winston and Wilson. John, I asked you pre-show, what do you think it means for them? They're picking at third overall in the draft. We talked about Shedeur Sanders potentially to them yesterday. Do you think this means the quarterbacks will fall another spot in the draft or what?
No, well, I mean, yeah, it's all dependent really on Cleveland, I think, more than anything else, because if it goes 1-2, obviously they're not falling anywhere, but I think what it does for the Giants, they don't have to feel that necessity to trade up and give away a Trey Lance-like package to move up and try to get a player who shouldn't be there, should pick a player that probably shouldn't be picked there in a normal year. So you don't have that desperation as much, perhaps. But obviously, it's a very short-term fix, if you want to call it a fix. Jameis Winston's not a relevant fix. Tommy DeVito, please. So, I mean, they still have to find the long-term answer, but I do think it takes some of the desperation off the table for the Giants, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit of draft proofing for them, kind of like we've talked about with the Philadelphia Eagles doing. Maybe not as good at it as the Eagles, but they're trying it out there in New York. John, the one thing I wonder about the New York Giants, and this is just a general question, why do they stink so badly? They're a big market team. They have money. They have everything they need, and it just feels like they don't do anything.
Well, they were a great organization for years when they had smart people making the decisions.
Right.
And they had, Jerry Reese there and Tom Coughlin there. That was the last time they were really good. And dating back before that, they had good decision makers. And then they decided to move on. And they made bad hire after bad hire. The coaches have been an abject disaster that they fired. The GMs have been not good that they hired. And if you got guys making decisions that don't make good decisions, it's really, really difficult. And then when you have this extended period of poor football, then it becomes a sense of urgency to turn around. So you lose patience, and it becomes like I know people are going to laugh at this, and feel free. Like, if Joe Shane could find a quarterback, and he should have done it last year, I think he'd be fine. But he made a mistake last year, but he didn't make the mistake everybody thinks he made, if that makes sense. It's not. It should make sense on this show, but
it makes sense. And you're saying people ration for guys like Saquon Barkley and the other stuff, and that's really not what's prevented them from ever being a good organization.
Because Saquon would have been great, like he was great the 6 years prior, but you saw the success rate.
Right.
They weren't ready for a running back like that. A running back like that, and I think I heard Daniel Jeremiah talk about this when he's talking about first round picks. Like, if you're ready to win, take a running back by all means. You know, those guys get the ball, they're playmakers. You know, somebody like Genty this year, by all means. If you're a crappy team and you're taking it's going to excite your fan base because he's a playmaker and he's probably going to be a good player, but he's not going to help you win games if you don't have a quarterback and you don't have an offensive line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think people look at it the wrong way, but right now they don't have patience, and he doesn't. Now he wasted a year where he could have gotten a quarterback, a legitimate prospect. Not that, you know, not that some of these draft boards and draft sites are everything, but, you know, some of the more popular ones have Ward at 21 and Sanders at 46, Ward at 15 and Sanders in the 30s.
Right. They're getting gassed
These
up.
these are not Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels and Drake May. They're not. From the perspective, that doesn't mean, Brock Purdy's a 7th round pick. He's a very competent NFL starter.
Right. You're not saying they can't be good. You're saying from a sheer upside and use of assets in the top 5
Exactly.
picks, these guys are not.
Exactly.
Not
so they could have, and they couldn't have gotten, but they could have gotten Penix. They could have gotten McCarthy. They could have gotten Nix, and maybe they didn't like those players. But if they didn't like those players, and you're trying to sell me that they like, and I'll throw Ward out of the equation, because he's going to go number 1, and you're telling me they like Shedeur Sanders, or even if you want to go down to Jackson Dart, because there's a lot of people that have Pittsburgh taking him in the 1st round, or the Giants trading down and taking him, or for the Jalen Milroe people, you know, because he's got tremendous athleticism and upside from that standpoint. And you're gonna tell me they like those guys better than Penix and McCarthy and Nix? Well, then I'll start ripping them. But they made the mistake last year, and it's because I always say the hardest thing for an NFL team is to be honest with themselves.
Right.
And they made the playoffs. And they upset Minnesota with Daniel Jones. Probably had his best game. That was not the Flores Minnesota team. That was the Ed Donatel Minnesota team that literally had one of the worst defenses ever. And they beat them, and they deserve credit for that. But they came to Philadelphia the next week and got absolutely waxed. And at that point, they should have said, you know what? What we saw last week wasn't real. We played a really bad defense. We had a really good day. And they weren't honest with themselves with Daniel Jones. And that was the big mistake.
Paying that dude. We'll see what ends up happening here with the New York Football Giants. John, what do you think of the NFC East right now? So me and Cilio did an exercise on his show. He always makes 10 bold predictions for the season. And then I followed up. I made my own. All right. But I'm not going to make you do that. But one of the things I did on my bold predictions was I put the Dallas Cowboys will beat out the Commanders for 2nd in the NFC East this year. One of my other bold predictions is that the Eagles will be the first team to repeat the NFC East since 2004. But I put the Cowboys jumping the Commanders. Now, have the Giants entered the mix at all, in your opinion, with Russell Wilson?
No.
They can't win 7 games, 8 games, 9 games, you don't think?
They could win 7, 8, be in that range. But no, the NFC East is going to be improved because, well, depending. Again, we're talking about March, like, whatever. I don't have my phone.
Yeah, March 26th.
March 26th. Plenty of time to go. Eagles are going to add some pieces. But right now, the Eagles have clearly scaled back from a talent standpoint. Plenty of time to go. Howie's been preaching patience this entire time. They're going to make some moves. They're going to do some things. It's going to look a lot better when they get to training camp, and it'll probably look a lot better when they get to week 1. If they decide in training camp that we're not good enough at this position, he might go out and do some things even late in training camp, yada, yada. So they're going to look better. But right now, unless you're the blindest Eagles fan imaginable, they've taken a step back from a talent standpoint. Washington, you're always a little bit worried about teams are going to adjust to what Jayden Daniels was successful at. Is he going to be able to adjust back? I would say it's very unlikely he has the same type of year he does as a rookie, simply because his rookie season was so spectacular. It's going to be tough to keep up that kind of production. They've signed a lot of veteran players, which, that's a high floor if they're healthy, but you have to worry about health. You have to worry about all that stuff. But I think they're a good team. And I think the perception is they've gotten a little bit better. Probably the perception is they've gotten a lot better. I'm a little bit lesser excited about their free agency than some people, because people get, in my opinion, people get caught up in big names, and Deebo Samuel being the notable example. I don't think that's much of an improvement. Other people will say, what a vast improvement, because they know the name, they know the player he was 3 years ago. But I do think it's fair to say they're a little bit better. The one team you can say, simply because they're getting their quarterback back, that is going to be significantly better is Dallas.
Right. It's where my prediction came from.
Now, they also aren't nearly as talented and gifted on the roster. They've had attrition over the past couple of years than they had been, say, 3 years ago. But are they going to be better than last year? Yes. Are they going to be a significant contender? I don't think so. And then the Giants are going to stink, whether it's Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, or Shedeur Sanders. They're going to stink up the joint.
They're going to stink. How far off do you think I am by putting the Cowboys above the Commanders? You think that's a crazy one, or are you?
I think a lot of things would have to go wrong for Washington for that to happen. I think Washington's a very talented team. The only question is, again, you're going to see some regression from Jayden Daniels, but
this is basically, I mean, you're going to talk about Dallas won 7 games last year without Dak. So I'm thinking, is Dak add 3 wins? I could see that with that team. Now I know the roster's not great, but I could see them getting to 10 wins. Commanders had 12 wins last year. If Jayden regresses a little bit, I could see them losing out the race for number 2 in the NFC East to the Cowboys.
Yeah, right now, I mean, because of the history of the NFC East, I would put Washington 1, Philadelphia 2, Dallas 3, Giants 4.
Yeah, I'm going Eagles 1.
Yeah, I mean, people don't repeat in this division. Till I see it, then I'll believe it.
20 years. 2004 was the last repeat winner, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles in 2004 after winning in 2003 as well.
They got to get to work. They got to hit on draft picks. They got to replace a lot of good players.
Yeah,
a lot of good players.
Now they do, but here's an interesting thing that happened on the shows this week. So Big Sills, Dan Sileo in the National Football Show 2 to 6 had on Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy Johnson obviously has, the creator of the value chart in the draft, obviously built the Cowboys.
People shouldn't use that, to all Jimmy's respect. They should use the Spielberger Fitzgerald stat.
Well, Jimmy's since updated it a lot, and he still does a lot of work with teams, actually. But anyway, he ran through the Eagles drafts with us on the show. Sileo got him to, look at the Eagles' last 4 drafts, and he knew, but he was obviously just not an Eagles focused guy. And he was pretty blown away. I mean, he gave Howie tremendous grades on most of his draft picks since 2021. And he gave him overall a B+ in the last 4 years. And just so you know, people who say, it should be an A. Jalen Carter was an A. He has 1 A+ in the history of the NFL, and it's Patrick Mahomes. All right. So he doesn't give A's easily. B+ overall. And he said, with 20 draft picks in the next 2 years, I don't think the Eagles have made one bad decision. I would have moved on from those expensive contracts too and got younger, because what you've done, you've shown that you're successful in drafting. Now you have to continue to draft successfully, but so far he doesn't think they've made any bad decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I've said the same thing. You know, I get why they moved on, but
Right.
the hard part is replacing them. Like I don't have any problem. Like I'm not paying Milton Williams $26 million.
Yeah.
I'm not paying Josh Webb what he got. I'm not disputing that part of what Jimmy said. The assumption that you're going to continue to draft at the level of success the Eagles have over the past 3 seasons is a bit lofty. Now, I know people are saying, well, they did it. Well, yeah, they did it, but again, it's an odds game. I like to play the odds game.
Yeah, I know, but they had the sample size that they have of success is getting big enough to say, have they figured something out to significantly tilt the odds in their scale?
Trap Georgia guys, but
Right, go SEC
or SEC guys
Yeah.
as a whole. But yeah, and even they're coming off a Super Bowl, so I mean everything. It's the biggest cliche in the world for a reason, but it is a cliche. And winning cures everything, and winning solves everything. Winning obfuscates all the negative, and it does. You don't have to go too far to look at the Jalen Ragers of the world, to look at the Andre Dillards of the world, to look at the JJ Arcega-Whitesides of the world. It's even if you want to look at how quickly the turnaround for Nolan Smith, people were complaining about that pick. Tyler Steen, people will start to complain about that pick if he can't seal the deal. There's 2 third-round picks from 2023 that they're projecting to be starters as we talk on March 26th. I don't get the sense anybody believes in Sidney Brown, and I don't get the sense many believe in Tyler Steen, other than it's more of a belief in Jeff Stoutland. And then you have Kelee Ringo in the 4th round, who's projected to be a starter. So this year's going to tell you a lot about that draft. But at the top of it, obviously Jalen Carter. And, the NFL got together and gifted. The NFL's bad teams got together and gifted the Eagles Jalen Carter. I agree with Jimmy. It's an A pick, but it's not an A for the personnel department. That's an A from common sense department, and having the courage to, as I always say, realize, well, he's not Robin Banks. He made a big mistake, but he's not a consistently bad kid getting in trouble day after day after day. And the Chicago Bears are like, we can't take this kid on. And the Eagles are like, all right, bring it on.
Right.
To me, that's an A in common sense. It should have been the first pick in the draft from a talent standpoint. So I think there's, as always, I think there's a lot of context. A lot of context in this type of stuff.
They've been successful, though. I mean, I will say that the level of success, and when we talk about odds, is above what the odds would say they would be, even for a successful drafting team, what they've done in the last 4 years.
Yeah, but and then if you want to go back to Nakobe Dean, people kind of forget, and I think they were also broken by, and I know we got to get the mic. I apologize. We got to get the mic. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, they hit the ground running right away. Well, Cooper, it took 4 games, but for the most part, they hit the ground running. Probably Vic should have played him, to be honest, before he did, but he didn't.
Well, he had that injury. Remember, didn't he have that injury?
He had a hamstring, but there was plenty of time. He was back. He should have played him. But from the standpoint of rookies playing as well as they do, that's typically not realistic. And you've even seen that with there are trajectory times where people said before last year, Nakobe Dean stinks and Nolan Smith stinks. It's just the reality of it. So the assumption that it's going to go, it might work in 2027. But the assumption that it's going to be Quinyon and Cooper next year, that's probably a little bit over the top.
I agree. We'll see what ends up happening. Birds have a lot of work to do in terms of recouping some of the talent that left this offseason. Plenty of draft picks to do it, plenty of spots, plenty of moments. We'll see what the Birds do up with the offseason here in front of us. Obviously, the NFL draft now, 29 days away? 29 days and 12 hours, everybody, until we're watching round one of the NFL draft. We're going to be joined now by Mike Gil from 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Later on in hour number 2, we're going to have Brandon Lee Goutton from Bleeding Green Nation. So looking forward to talking to both of our Wednesday guests today. Let's go to Mike Gil from 97.3 ESPN joining the show right now. Mike, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Wednesday morning edition of Birds 365?
Doing all right, guys. Less than a month to the draft. I can't believe it.
Yep.
Yeah, how about that? How was Clearwater, number one? Was the weather beautiful? That's first and foremost. No?
A couple days was kind of cold, actually, I got to say. It was in the 50s on Friday in Dunedin. We went to watch the Phillies play the Blue Jays up at their ballpark. It was cold. It was for the gentlemen, I would say shorts and a hoodie weather. For the ladies, probably 2 hoodies and long pants.
That's not good. That's not good. That's not what
you know. You ever hear a girl not come right out and say, "I'm cold"?
Oh, I mean, I've heard that too much, Mike.
So the girls were a little chilly. We were hanging in there. I will say, if you were out of the sun on Friday, Saturday, it was a little cold, but overall, very good. Love getting down there for a couple days.
All right, good to hear you had a good time. World Series or bust, I assume, is your prediction for the Phillies. I'm sure. Let's get some positivity.
To be fair, we're talking about. I heard you guys talk about hitting in the draft. At some point you have to expect you're not going to hit every pick, and at some season or some time that you're a sports fan, your team's not going to be. The expectations are this just isn't going to be the year. And I was talking about this about the Eagles a couple of years ago. You win the Super Bowl. A couple of weeks ago, I should say, you win the Super Bowl. Is next year the year where you're well, we're going to win it again? And then the third year is, well, we're going to win it at some point. Reality sticks in that you're going into a season knowing that you're not going to win the Super Bowl or that you're just not talented enough to win the Super Bowl. But one of the things that this organization has done, this is where they excel, is that they've set themselves up to take so many swings at it, whether they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender or not. I mean, there's some years where, hey, they're just a wild card team, or the year they went 10-1 and then fell off the cliff at the end. You were the best team in the league for 11 weeks that season. For whatever went wrong, this organization has done over a 25-year, almost 30-year period now, put themselves in position to constantly be in play, to make every season matter. It's truly amazing.
It is.
Yeah, and that's sort of the Andy Reid philosophy all the way back to 1999. So they still sort of tap into that foundation. That's why I try to give Andy Joe Banner as well, even though it'll make his head big. But I think they created that sort of mindset that continues to this day, with a little detour during Chip Kelly, but they recalibrated, got right back to what they do and what they've done pretty successfully. The difference with this group is they've gotten over the top over the past 8 years, and that changes the whole philosophy. But I don't know how long you were in the green room there, Mike, but you heard us talking about the recent drafts, and Zander brought up Jimmy Johnson, who was on Cilio's show, and he's given the Eagles great grades and all that kind of standpoint. And their last 3 drafts, really 4 drafts, if you want to go back to 2021, which the Devontae, that might have been the best one, to be honest, with Devontae and Landon 1-2, and Milton was great. So that's pretty stinking good. Now, I think there's a lot of context in all of this. And what I pointed, there's guys that hit right away, like DeVonta Smith and Jalen Carter, and last year with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean And then there's the long trajectory guys, Nakobe Dean. Yeah, people were incensed that the Eagles took Cam Jurgens before Nakobe Dean. And Cam Jurgens didn't even play his rookie season. In his second season, he was the right guard. And then finally, Jason Kelce retires and he turns into a Pro Bowl center, which is what they drafted him as. So that's 3 years, Mike.
Yeah.
Nakobe Dean took 3 years to turn into Nakobe Dean, who was playing at a really high level before he got injured. Other guys, Nolan Smith.
Nolan Smith is the guy I think it is. I don't even know. What do we think of Nolan Smith? His first year, he hardly played. Yeah. Last year, he was, I would say, up and down. Early in the season, I don't know that you're thinking that Nolan Smith, is this untouchable trade piece. We were talking before, would you trade Nolan Smith to get Myles Garrett? That was a conversation. I had people on my show like, no way, you can't trade Nolan Smith. I said, guy had 6.5 sacks. Like all of a sudden he turned into a 15-sack guy.
Yeah, I know. We had this discussion a lot. I'm like, yeah, I'm trading Nolan Smith if I could get Myles Garrett. I mean, that's not much about
to be fair, that's the point. The first year he doesn't play at all. The second year, for about 8 weeks, Nolan Smith is insignificant, and then all of a sudden he has a nice end. And look, I like Nolan Smith. I thought it was a decision where, I don't want to give up a kid who's that young. But what is Nolan Smith's ceiling now in year 3? Is he a 10-sack guy? Is he a 12-sack guy? Or is he somewhere between that 6 to 8-sack guy who's a little undersized? I don't know. I mean, I think the jury is still out on what Nolan Smith even is. But I think most people would say they like him. And they are excited to see what is next for him in year number 3. But yeah,
they should be excited. They should be excited by the upside.
What is it? I mean, is he a 6 to 8 sack guy? Is he a 10 to 12? I mean, where do they?
I think he's going double digits this year, Mike. Based on his end of the year, he had 6.5 in the last. After Brandon Graham got hurt, when he really ramped up his playing time, maybe after week 4, he had 6, started to play more. And then he had 4.5 in the postseason. And I thought that was pretty impressive, 4.5. So you're looking at 11, between – well, yeah. No,
4.5 in the playoffs is pretty damn good.
So I think he's a double-digit sack guy. Now, it has never materialized.
It turned out to be a double-digit sack. This was like a couple of years ago in basketball, there was talk to trade Tyrese Maxey for Dame Lillard, right? And it's like, do we see Tyrese Maxey as a 30-point-per-game scorer? Here we are 2 years later that trade has happened. Maxey's not quite a 30-point-a-game guy. This season's been completely smashed. But that's where you talk about like a young guy versus an established guy. The Eagles are at a point where can they keep waiting for the young guy to reach his ceiling versus the guy who's not only at the ceiling, he's blasted through it and is maybe one of the best players of all time. And that's why when I was looking back at that, I'm thinking, I don't know what Nolan Smith is. I like what I see. I see what you're seeing, Zander, a guy who had an unbelievable end of the season. Josh Sweat also had a great playoff. Do we think he's getting better, or did he just have a good streak of games? I don't know that Josh Sweat's going to go to Arizona and have 12.5 sacks and become a guy that you're looking back on and saying, man, like, and I know nobody, I don't think there was one person that I heard, guys, that were like, you got to bring Josh Sweat back. Like, it was almost like, okay, you want to leave.
Well, I thought it was a beta accomplishment. I think most people realize, and Milton's in this category as well, they weren't coming back. I mean, they just weren't going to be
for the money, right? But I'm talking about even forget the money. I think if they could have brought Milton Williams back, I think people would have been more like, you got to bring Milton back. But I don't think I had a lot of people fighting to get, you got to do whatever it takes to get Josh Sweat back.
Well, Milton's interesting too, because he took 4 years, and he hit on himself. And could he have been better with more, like early in his career, he didn't play that much early because they were very deep. And his third year, he was very good in a rotational role, but Fletcher was still here. And I'm sure, in fact, I'm 100% positive that the Eagles were trying to extend him as they normally do because they thought he was a good player. Well, think about Milton Williams' extension after his third year. maybe get $6, $7, $8 million as a back. And he's like, no, I'm going to play more this year. I'm going to bet on myself. To say the least, he hit a home run. Now he's at 26 million from an average annual bet. That's too much. But he bet on himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, listen, I don't think anybody was saying, how come you didn't pay what New England did? I didn't hear any of that. It was more, man, I wish there was a way they could have found it, but not so much for Sweat. I will say the one guy before I left, I said, look, I think the Eagles should take, I think we talked about it last week when I was here on Monday. I was on, I don't know what day it was anymore, but too much travel, guys. My brain is all over the place. But Ojulari, I was all about them trying to take it. And he was such a guy who fit what they do. High draft pick, not a first-round pick, but, great numbers, injured, went to Georgia. I think he's going to have a really good year here. So, they let Sweat go. I think they've done an interesting job replacing him here. And it makes me wonder if in the draft, well, I think they're going to trade. I looked at the trade yesterday they made with Baltimore. They got a second-round pick, which was 52, and they got a fourth-round pick. They moved up 7 spots in the fourth round.
Yeah.
And then they got a future second-round pick, which turned into Miles Sanders. So if they actually mirror that, then they traded 52 and moved down again and ended up drafting Goedert.
No, they drafted 52 and moved up to get Goedert because Dallas was going to take Goedert at 50.
Yeah, they went up to get Goedert. You're right. So they ended up with 52, which turned into Goedert, a fourth-round pick, which turned into Avonte Maddox, and then a second-round pick in the next season, which turned into Miles Sanders. I can see them using something similar.
Yeah, but here's the problem with that, Mike.
The jury's out.
Baltimore was going up to get a quarterback.
True.
And they're willing to give up more for quarterbacks. So
that is true. Unless
you have somebody's going up to get Jackson Dart or somebody falls in love with Jalen Milroe and they want that 50-year option, they're not going to give you that future second-round pick for a positional player. They're not.
Well, you're right about that.
And I say that there's always a dumb team. You can never say 100%.
Well, even if you move back into so what I see basically coming up here is they're moving out of 32 to go back into the second round, getting another second or third or, third or fourth, I should say. And then they have 4 fifth-round picks. And then using those fifth-round picks to try to move themselves higher and getting themselves a group of picks between the second and fourth round. So they have a lot of high-value players at low market value, at low prices, and just try to restock between round 2 and round 4 with, a bunch of these guys. And this comes back to what you're saying. They've been hitting so much, they're going to try to get 4 or 5 guys in between pick, 50 and pick 100 and see if they can get 4 to 5 guys in that range.
Yeah, but those are not the guys. And again, that's where I bring in look at 2023 because this is the year they want Tyler Steen to step up. They wanted him to step up last year. They want Sidney Brown to step up.
Do you think they want Steen to win that job, or do they like the position that he's currently in, or do they hope that Green surprises them like Becton did and wins that job?
Well, I think they'll start with Steen, and if
like
he doesn't
last year.
If he doesn't seize the job, they'll hope that Jeff Stoutland, that to me, Kenyon Green's their insurance policy. So with all these young players, they brought in insurance policy. Like they want Kaylee Ringo to win the job, but they have Adoree Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Now they still have to do that at safety with Sydney because it's not going to be Tristan McCullum or Lewis Cine. People will get very excited about Lewis Cine. They're going to bring in somebody at safety as an insurance policy. And then defensive tackle as well. If you want to go to Moro Ajomo as another young player, they're not going to count on they have to bring something in there. So if you start, but my point is when you're saying, well, they're going to try to target people in that mid-range, I agree with you, and sort of repopulate. But that ain't gonna hit right away. That's very unlikely. But
it adds the depth to be able, you're thinking about you said Nakobe Dean. It took him a couple of years, and then he became the starter. Guys like that where you drafted them in the middle rounds. I know Dean, many people thought should have gone in the first round. You think you hinted at that. They took Juergens and people wanted Dean in the second round. Yep. But, you find those guys, Tyler Steen, here he is now, his third round pick. They're hoping that he becomes the starter in that third year now. So you get these guys now, they're kind of the Milton Williams, the Maro Ojomos, and then hopefully 3 years from now, they're ready to kind of jump into those spots when they have to make decisions to pay the next round of guys.
Yeah, it does seem like they're going to need production quicker from those middle round guys than they've gotten, especially with the roster turnover. Mike, speaking of the roster turnover, the Giants signed a quarterback yesterday. They got Russell Wilson, and they signed also Jameis Winston. Commanders have made some moves. Dallas is getting Dak Prescott back. You think there's going to be any big changes in the NFC East this year? Have the Eagles lost enough players, Mike, for you to wonder whether they're going to win the NFC East this year? No repeat winner since 2004.
No repeat winner, right, since 2004. It's Dan Graziano's favorite stat.
Yeah.
I saw a way too early power poll yesterday for the NFC.
The March power poll. I love it.
Philadelphia 1, Washington 2. So Washington's getting the buzz. They went out and did some things. They added some names. Deebo Samuel, obviously, at the top of that list. I think the gap is closed. I don't think it's wide. Not as wide as it was a year ago. It certainly is close. You're not as good today as you were on February the 9th. It's just, that's a fact. Just not as good. Washington, on paper, is better than they were when they lost to you in the NFC Championship game, right? I mean, I think we all might say, well, I don't like some of the moves they made. They're still better team. They haven't lost anybody of significance, so they closed the gap on you. Dallas, let's be honest, they had so many injury problems last year. It's so hard to say what they were or weren't. I mean, they were just kind of, you're going through a season with Cooper Rush. What are you really expecting from that team? They lost half their defense for half the year. They had no running game to speak of at all last year. Their offensive line was a disaster. So is Dallas better today just because Dak Prescott's healthy, Micah Parsons healthy? Probably. Are they close enough where they've closed the gap to catch you? Not necessarily. And the Giants were such a mess last year. But look, getting Russell Wilson at quarterback and giving Neighbors, who's a really good player, now a legitimate guy to throw him the ball. They haven't done enough this offseason to make you really say, can they go from a 3-win team to a 9-win team? But, I think the division's more competitive, no question, with Washington definitely closing the gap. Did they close the gap enough? Probably not yet. But I don't think it's, look, as you said, 2004. I mean, it's been a while since the team has been able to repeat. And a lot of that's because these teams are coming after you. I think Washington has taken their swing. And if their swings work, if Deebo can play still, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he's actually a pretty good player still. That's just one of the moves that they have made that has tried to close the gap. So I definitely think navigating your way, and by the way, their schedule next year is brutal. The whole NFC East is very tough. So Washington, we'll find out if they were really, really for real as they play a tougher schedule. But navigating yourself through the NFC East is not going to be nearly as easy as it was last year when you're playing Cooper Rush twice. And I don't even remember who the quarterback was for the Giants when they played them both times. But yeah, much. Russell Wilson can win a game for you. It might not win 10 games for you, but he can beat you with what they have there.
More so than Tommy DeVito. What about Jayden Daniels? You think any regression, any sophomore slump coming for Jayden Daniels?
Oh, Jayden Daniels. I was a huge fan of C.J. Stroud after that first year. Maybe because he burned me in fantasy this year, but he was not as good. But one of the reasons he wasn't as good is they lost Stephon Diggs. Then they lost the other receivers. He had 2 receivers out for most of the year. But it showed that he wasn't the kind of guy that could just play with anybody you throw in there. He needed the help of those guys to help him. And that's not a bad thing. Everybody needs help. But I think Jayden Daniels is definitely a guy that is going to get better. I mean, they didn't have a lot there to begin with. I mean, obviously McLaurin's very good, but not much else to help him out there.
Yeah.
And he's still
Zach Ertz, baby.
They got rid of everybody else that was there. De'Ami Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus, they're gone.
Right.
They don't even,
Well, and this is where the Debo thing, right? The Debo thing. What is I find, a lot of people think Debo's kind of shot. He's hurt a lot. I think this is and I know Shanahan.
I'm in that category, by the way.
I know you said that on my show as well. This is a fun offense for him, though. You got a kind of much like he was in. You don't like?
I don't agree with it from the standpoint. Like Kyle's, I like Kyle Kingsbury a lot. Cliff Kingsbury.
Kyle Shanahan's offense for him there.
I like him a lot too.
In creative ways. I think they're going to get him the ball in creative ways here.
Well,
maybe not as much running the ball or jet sweeps or stuff like that, but more bubble stuff, short stuff. I feel that one thing over the years, the Eagles did it with Nelson Aguilar in 2017. They threw him the ball like a slot guy, short, curls, let him catch it, reverse field, much like your Cooper Kupps and your Edelmans doing the slot where they just curl, catch, short, reverse pivot, get up the field.
Yeah, but Nelson, here's the difference. Nelson can run routes, believe it or not. Nelson was always open. Nelson's problem wasn't getting open. It was catching the football consistently, especially tracking it downfield.
Yes.
Cooper Kupp, one of the great route runners in the modern game. Julian Edelman, great route runner. That ain't Debo. Debo's the gadget guy. Debo's the manufactured touch guy. Debo's what you said. He's the jet sweep guy. He can run out of the backfield. He can play running back. Right. He can do all of that.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan, if you remember when Debo was complaining the first time and wanted out, and there was a lot of talk about him wanting to go home to Carolina, I said, be careful what you wish for, because other offensive coordinators aren't going to use you the same way Kyle Shanahan uses you. That's what's going to happen. Cliff is, I like Cliff, but he's a spread guy. So you're going to have to run routes. Yeah, is there going to be the occasional bubble screen? Of course, unfortunately. But, yeah, you're going to have to run routes, and that's not his game.
You can't build your offense around the gadget stuff.
No. And nobody does it better than Kyle.
I will say this as well. McLaurin has had no help.
McLaurin's great.
He's great, right? And McLaurin has had really big games against Philadelphia. That's without anybody on the other side. I mean, maybe Debo isn't what he was, but you still have to account for where he is on the field more so.
Oh, yeah, he's better. Well, he's an improvement.
I'm with John on this, man. I think a route runner would serve Terry way better on the other side of him.
Well, I'm always a route runner guy because I don't want, like, I think a lot of people get caught up in offensive coordinators have to scheme guys open. Oh, he's got to scheme them open. He's got to scheme them up. No, I want a guy who can get open on his own. That's what I want. That to me is when you could you're in the guts of the game. You've already you've run the damn same play 3 times. Yet they've seen everything you got, and your guy's just better than their guy. That's what I want. Well, and you can just run a route and get open.
They got McCaffrey too, who's kind of that slot guy who can kind of be the route runner in there as well. I'm just saying Debo as just much like a Torrey Smith almost when he was here. Didn't do a lot numerically, but he certainly opened some things up just because he had the ability to just run right by you. That's where I think having McLaurin with somebody that you have to pay attention to will give him much more opening.
They're better with Debo. I'm not saying they're not better because, Zander brought up some of those.
They got names. Michael Gallup out there too now.
Michael Gallup. Olamide Zaccheaus, Diami. I mean, they've got better. And that's part of the problem. Laramie Tunsil's
Noah Brown is actually a decent player.
Laramie Tunsil's their best pickup. I mean, that dude's a legit left tackle.
Their offensive line has been iffy. You get Tunsil out there, that's a nice pickup for them.
That's a very nice pickup. I don't like the Jonathan Allen trade, sort of. It wasn't a trade, but Jonathan Allen out, Javon Kinlaw in.
Kinlaw.
I don't like that, but you can see their thought process at least, which is, all right, we can't stop the run. We got to play the Eagles. We got to get more of a run defender. I see it from that standpoint. I just don't like the player. But yeah, I'm with you right now. And part of it is Dan's favorite stat. But again, it's March 26th. The Eagles have lost a lot of good players. I don't disagree with any of their decisions, but they lost a lot of good players and they haven't replaced them.
Yeah.
Right now, and they don't have to play on March 27th, so it doesn't matter. But right now, I would say Washington has slowly inched ahead, slightly inched ahead.
All right. Slowly inched ahead is what you're saying.
Yeah. Right now, I would pick them. Again, if we were if this was it, and it's not it.
Yeah, well, listen, and the Eagles winning the division, they both have to play the NFC North, which all 4 teams in the North are pretty good now. I mean, I think the Bears have made significant strides towards respectability.
But Minnesota's come down. Minnesota's going to play a guy who never taken an
Yeah, but Minnesota's defense is still pretty good. They'll fight you.
If he doesn't work out, it's a shame because that roster in Minnesota is good.
Yeah, they're if they had Aaron Rodgers, but I get from their standpoint, like that's a short-term fix, and you want to finally get the long-term fix. But
all 4 teams all 4 teams in that division are solid. You don't see a 3-win team in that division. Who's the other who's the crossover on the other? Is it the West? The Chiefs? I know they play.
We're playing the Chiefs. I think we have the Bills too next year, don't we?
Well, that's my point.
You're a first place team, so you're playing all the first place teams.
You have 3 extra games against like the Chiefs, the Bills, and another first place team that Washington is not going to have to play. So that could be a big difference between two really good teams.
That is a very big dip. That's
part of the problem. Between 2 really good teams, where one is playing Kansas City, Buffalo, and I don't know who the other first place team is that they got the crossover with, where Washington, instead of playing Kansas City, they're playing, the Chargers. And instead of playing Buffalo, they're playing Miami. So that could be the difference in if you win 11, maybe they get to 12.
Yeah. Yeah, they're playing the NFC North, as you mentioned, the AFC West. Buffalo's the interconference opponent. And then the Rams and the Buccaneers are the conference opponents.
The Rams because they won the West and the Buccaneers because they won the South.
Yes.
Okay? So instead of the Eagles are playing the Buccaneers, the Washington will play Atlanta.
Exactly.
Big difference there. The Rams, Philadelphia will play. Washington will play Seattle, I guess.
So you're basically talking 3 teams that aren't locked in, and they're all first place teams: Buffalo, Los Angeles, Tampa Bay. Or did the Rams win? They won. Did they?
Yeah.
The Rams won the West. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what you're talking about: Buffalo, the Rams, Tampa Bay.
And listen, I agree with you. I think Washington has inched closer. I'm not sure they've inched past because I'll take Philly's offense right now over Washington's offense. I think that's a lot.
I'm not saying they passed them from a talent perspective. I'm saying if I'm predicting a division, and part of it is just what we talked about. Part of it is 2004. Part of it is nobody's repeated for 20 plus years. Why hasn't anybody repeated for 20 plus years? Well, that's part of the reason. You have a more difficult hurdle than they do, and they're good enough to where they'll be in the same stratosphere, and that could be the difference in winning the division. That's the reason why you have no repeat winners for 20 plus years.
Been close.
That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
A lot of close. And listen, again, I go back to Dallas, where last year they were the previous year. They win 13 games. They won the division. And then last year, I think most people thought they were the best team in that division and ended up losing this guy, then losing that guy. They didn't lose because, man, this team really stinks. It was they lost this guy, they lost that guy, then this guy got hurt, then the quarterback gets hurt, the defense got hurt, this guy got hurt. I mean, they were a product of the injuries. They just could not overcome them. And I think that it's far-fetched to expect that's going to happen again. You get your quarterback back. I think they've improved their run game significantly. Rico Dowd and Zeke Elliott, not the best rushing attack back there. Now you get Miles Sanders, and who else did they add? Who did they bring in?
Williams, was it?
Oh yeah, they signed
Devontae Williams.
Yeah, Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I liked him, but he's always hurt. So, but I
always
see
hurt.
the
You
upside.
pair him up with Miles Sanders now, so you get that dynamic. They haven't done a lot this offseason, but what they're banking on is we're getting a lot of guys back. We're getting healthy. We get the quarterback back. They won, I think, 12 games the year before. What did I say? 13, 12, somewhere in that range.
They won 13 3 years in a row.
There you go.
I thought it was 12 3 years in a row. Wasn't it?
Whatever it was.
Might have been 12.
That's a lot of wins. That's a lot of wins.
No, Mike, I predicted them yesterday to get second in the NFC East over Washington because I think Jayden might regress a little bit. Not saying as a player, but a tougher year because the NFL is going to adapt to his game a little bit.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You watch him on film and now see some of his tendencies.
I think it's one of those things where Jayden Daniels is going to get better, but his stats are going to get worse.
Right. I think that could be fair, John.
Okay, it's interesting. I was a proponent in the draft to take Daniel. I was not a big Caleb Williams guy.
Oh, I was all Jayden Daniels all the time, Mike Gil. Should have been the number one.
You and I are like old kindred souls. We have a lot of the same wavelengths here, but I was not a big Caleb Williams guy. Acknowledge his talent, but there's just something about him that just says this team, whatever franchise he goes to, is not going to have the success that they think. But
he's got to hit this year because they've improved. They've rebuilt their offensive line. They have now an offensive minded head coach, which. I always add, if you're going to take a quarterback number 1 overall and you're going to have Matt Eberflus or any defensive-minded head coach, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
So now everybody loves Ben Johnson. There's no more excuses for Caleb Williams. And he's got all the talent in the world. Doesn't have the best body language in the world. So we'll see if he can do.
The talent is certainly there. He's a little erratic with some of his stuff. I just think he's a guy that has gotten by because he's so talented over the years, so much more talented than everybody else on the field with him. But that doesn't work at this level. I mean, you can get by at USC and against Washington State on a Saturday night and pull them. It's different than going to Seattle and playing the Seahawks.
He can make some throws, man, though. Whew.
He's got the arm talent. No question. He slings it, but he slings it high. He slings it wide. He slings it low. He slings it high. It's like a pitcher who throws 101. He just doesn't know where it's going.
I get the sense
nobody cares. Nobody cares how hard you throw ball 4. It's
true. It's very true. I get the sense that Ben Johnson's going to be a good coach. Maybe I'm wrong. I just get the sense he knows what you got to do to build a good team, and started with offensive line rejuvenation when he got there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
He knows. Ben knows because he was in Detroit with that offensive
and he had success with Jared Goff.
Yeah.
He knew that he did that because he had a great offensive line and guys they could get the ball to.
I agree that I think that this situation should bring out the best in him. I also agree with you, John. If it doesn't, then I think you can start putting him in the Jameis Winston category, a guy who can put up a lot of big numbers, but you just can't count on him.
At Mike Gil Show, make sure you follow Mike on the X platform. Subscribe to his YouTube page as well, at Mike Gil Show. Hey, got to talk to you about YouTube, Zander. Number 1 in TV. More people watch their TV on YouTube than anything, which is amazing to me, by the way. If you think
it's amazing to people. I'm 48, right? But it's funny, when we moved into this house, my girlfriend, we said to her boys, "Do you guys want to get cable upstairs?" This is a couple of years ago. We don't even have cable anymore, but no. I mean, they don't even know the concept of flipping the television on. As soon as they sit on this couch, it is YouTube right away.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So that the shifting landscape of television, we'll get into that at some point. But for you, Mike, I don't know how deep you've gotten in the draft, but since we're talking quarterbacks and Caleb Williams last year, and I bring this back to the Giants, last year was Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix. So I'm giving you those 6 quarterbacks. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Where do they fit? If they were 8 together, where do they fit?
Man, I haven't liked the quarterback classes I did like Jayden Daniels a lot. Not a big Caleb Williams fan. Last year's class, I did not have a guy that I was all that excited about.
Boy, I was excited about last year's class.
Yeah.
I am not excited about
Jayden.
this year's class. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. Where would Cam Ward fit? I think behind Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams, no question.
Yeah. And Drake May, I would say. I have Ward at 4.
And Drake May, too. Yeah. I'm not the biggest Drake May. Wasn't the biggest Drake May guy. And I certainly didn't like Bo Nix. I was way off.
I was way wrong on Bo Nix.
I think I didn't love Bo Nix. I'm not trying to say I did. I think we're all off. In hindsight, he proved certain. I still think there's some limitations. But
he was way more of an improviser than I gave him credit for. Like in college, he just seemed to be running around because he had to. Here, he seems like he can elude. He has a little bit. Now I'm wondering if that, much like the Jayden Daniels things, are people going to scout him out a little bit, force him to do some things,
right.
That kind of stuff. But I would say Cam Ward would be behind probably. Man, after seeing these guys, like I was impressed by what I saw from Bo Nix. Didn't like him coming into the league. Drake May wasn't a huge fan of. I would say Cam Ward and Sanders would be behind those 4 guys.
Yeah, Sanders I would place 8th in the group, dead last, and Ward I think you can start the conversation at 4. I think you can make an argument for him at that point, but I think you can also make arguments for Penix and McCarthy.
I'm not the biggest Penix
prospects.
I don't love Michael Penix.
Wasn't a big JJ McCarthy fan. Michael Penix, interesting guy. I mean, the injuries have been his problem. I mean, when he's played, he's been great. He's been injured a lot. He had when he was at Indiana, he was really good. People even forget when he played there. He was really good there.
He was very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. We were just talking about the quarterbacks yesterday. Jackson, Dart, Dylan Gabriel is guys like in the mid-round. Gabriel would be Dart. Where's he going to go? Is he going to sneak in that upper first round, lower first round? You mentioned Milroe. You've got the Texas kid.
Well, I don't like him a little bit. Quinn Ewers.
Oh, no, you don't like him, Johnny Mac?
I just don't think he's got the arm strength to be.
No,
I think he could be a Colt McCoy if we want to go Texas.
Yeah, right.
Long time back.
Like a good, solid backup, smart guy.
I kind of like Dylan Gabriel mid rounds as like think kind of a Bo Nix comp. We just mentioned him. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as him, but I could see him as mid round being some value for a team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying. There's one guy that's on the tip of my tongue. I'm forgetting now. We were talking about him all day yesterday.
The kid from Louisville, Tyler Shue, maybe.
No,
Kyle McCord, the local guy.
Oh, Kyle McCord from he went to Syracuse, right? Yeah.
He's from
Will Howard, the Ohio State kid.
Ohio State.
The Ohio State Will Howard has some interesting traits that could possibly be better at the pro level than and they had Chip Kelly's offense there for him at Ohio State. So can he kind of translate that into the NFL better?
I was wondering why Ohio State went and got Will Howard from Kansas State. Now he
was awesome at Kansas State.
Well, I know, awesome. but Kyle McCord was awesome at Ohio State, and then they let him go to Syracuse, and he set like all kinds of records at Syracuse. And I'm like, why did they change? And they won, so they validated themselves.
Yep.
But yeah, I didn't see that much of a difference between those two.
I think Howard's a little bit more athletic and run a little bit more, a little bigger. He was so good at Kansas State. That team just wasn't, great. It was okay around him, not like Ohio State good. And it was like if you gave him a team. Now, they didn't have the same level of weapons that they had the previous couple of years at Ohio State. You didn't have a Marvin Harrison out there. They had so many great weapons and receivers at Ohio State. But I do think he could be a surprise if he gets in the right spot. I mean, and don't forget, Chip Kelly is now in Vegas, a mid-round pick out there.
Yeah. Chip is back.
Shedeur Sanders, though, is interesting. There's so many people that he's so polarizing because obviously of his dad, and it's like
to me, it has nothing to do about his name, his dad. I don't care about that.
I get that. It's like if he was not Deion Sanders' son, is he being evaluated differently? Is he being watched differently? Is he being talked about differently? If he was just Joe Phillips, the quarterback of Colorado, is he a first-round pick? Is he would we be saying, oh, this guy's got, good mid-round possibilities? The fact that he's Deion Sanders' son, I think, clouds everybody's ability.
I mean, from an NFL standpoint, bottom line, he's below average in all the traits you look for: height, weight, speed, and arm talent. He's way below average. I saw the comparison, and I keep bringing it up. We got to lock that down. I think it was Ian Cummings who made it. Sander corrected me. Compared his arm talent to Brock Purdy. And now Brock is proof that's not an insult because Brock Purdy's a legitimate starting quarterback, but he's a 7th round pick. Yeah. I'm talking about value. This guy could be selected number 2 overall. And
that's where the one thing I'll give him some credit for is, he played on a team that had no offensive line at all and was able to make throws and plays. He had no help other than Hunter, whose second job is as a wide receiver. He's gallivanting as a wide receiver on his off days. He's a pretty good wide receiver, but still, he had no help, no line, and was still able to make throws and plays. So I just don't know how that translates to the NFL, though. It might translate a little bit.
By the way, Travis Hunter, Mike, if the New York Giants take Travis Hunter and play him at wide receiver, I guarantee he should be a cornerback. If they play him at cornerback, I guarantee he should be a wide receiver.
Well, do you think the team that takes him is legitimately going to play him at both?
No. I think they may talk about it when they draft him. I remember when Doug Peterson drafted Jalen Hurts, it was one of my favorite press conferences. If anybody remembers it, he was talking about using 2 quarterbacks on the field at one time.
Yeah.
Never happens. Never manifests.
Chip Kelly, what are you going to do with all these tight ends? Well, if I need them, I'll just hold up 3 fingers like this and 3 tight ends will go out on the field. We never saw that either. I don't know if a team would do it, but if you're not going to do it, would you then take a corner or a wide receiver who's
part of the reason why I wouldn't draft him, to be honest.
Because if Cleveland takes him at number 2, they're passing on a quarterback to take a guy who's either a corner. I would say he's a corner first, right?
I think the Giants would play him at receiver, but what do I know? It's so difficult. He can do both, but you got to figure out. And I don't think I think you're doing him a disservice if you try to play him at both. At this level,
I don't know why though that you.
I'll say this: Jeremiah lists him. That's what I was looking at. Daniel lists him as a wide receiver. He's got him as the second best prospect in the draft as a wide receiver.
On the ESPN.com draft rankings, they don't list him as a wideout at all. They list him as the top corner on their board.
I know that's part of the
score is they have him as a 93 as his overall score as a corner, but not listed as a wideout.
That's part of my problem. I mean, he's
How
phenomenal.
The number 1 wide receiver on one board, not listed on another, but you're the number 1 corner on one board.
I know he's a phenomenal.
Where does Jeremiah have him as a corner?
I'm not. He doesn't. He lists him as a wide receiver. He doesn't have him as a corner.
Well, that's unbelievable.
So what I'm trying to say is, this is part of my problem. Is that this is a kid who this ain't Shedeur Sanders. He belongs in the top 5. But the problem is, you got to figure out what he is. You know, in the old days when they would recruit you to college, and they probably still do it to a certain degree, you'll remember you always saw athlete. They would say, we recruited, and they were trying to decide where to put them. You never have to do that in the NFL. With this kid, I think you have to decide where you're going to put him. You know, now on his top 50, he said, and this is DJ, on offense, he is creative in his release to escape press as a receiver. He is constantly changing gears to keep cornerbacks off balance, never wastes steps on the top of his route. He drops his weight, explodes out of the break, blah, blah, all the scout talk. So he talks about him as a receiver. And then at the end, you know, he talks about physically holding up if he continues to play on both sides of the ball full time at the professional level. I don't think it's possible. So,
yeah, I mean, there's only one Shohei Ohtani, and he broke down as a pitcher. I guess he'll be back this year, but can there be one Travis Hunter? I don't know. I don't know why it's
how
not
do you deal with that
far-fetched.
as a front office too? Like you
I
draft
will say
him.
this, Xander. It's not far-fetched to say the guy's a corner, but if we want to play him on offense 10, 15 plays a game, why can't they do that?
I think you could do that. I think that honestly, Mike, that might make the most sense because you're not going to play him for 10, 15 snaps as a corner. You know, you'd probably set him as a corner and then use him sporadically on offense.
Right. Like he doesn't have to be A.J. Brown, but he can have 10, 15 plays throughout the game.
Yeah, it's and Daniel's last sentence is, I prefer he prioritize offense and moonlight on defense. So he's going the opposite way. But
I just feel like it's less likely, right, John? I mean, you don't really rotate guys in at corner often versus receiver, you can fluctuate.
Yeah.
You can have certain packages. You can say, hey, on our second,
if you're hell bent, like
quarter, you're going to be out there.
Like I would make him a receiver full time, but if you're going to moonlight, yeah, I agree with you guys. It's easier to rotate as a receiver than a corner. But I'd make him a full-time offensive player.
Yeah.
But he can do both, and that's part of the reason why I don't want to get in the Travis Hunter business, because I don't want to make that decision.
Yeah. Well, and then you got to deal with the player. You draft him, and you're like, hey, we want to do this with you, and he's like, well, no, I don't want to do that. You know, how do you deal with that? The agent, all that. Oh, yeah, I think it's
ultimately that's bad teams' problems, and the bad teams
I know
are going to be
exactly.
Bad teams are going to be in that business. So.
I mean, that might be a little bit, to be honest, I acknowledge that might be a little bit scared, and you shouldn't be scared because this is a great player. But I just think there's a lot of complications with it. But it has nothing to do with like Shedeur. I don't think he's a top 10 pick from a talent standpoint. Hunter, off the charts. He's top 5, top 2. It's Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter to me.
If the Giants get Travis Hunter, are they looking legit? Let's say
if they play him at receiver and have Neighbors and Hunter,
that's pretty good.
That's what I'm saying.
We've seen teams go down that route. The Detroit Lions, with Rodgers and Calvin Johnson, they drafted 3 receivers back to back to back. We've seen teams. Justin Jefferson on one side and Adam Thielen on, not that Adam Thielen's like, a top round, but for a while there, he was pretty good. We've seen teams that have 2 really good receivers, but if you don't have an offensive line and no one to get the ball, now Russell Wilson is competent. He's not the same player that he was.
No.
He is competent.
His arm is not that good.
I'm with you. If the Giants pick him, they'll try to make him a full-time player on both sides of the ball, be injured in week 3, and that'll be that.
And if you're a receiver in New York, you might rather have Winston. He's going to get a bunch of interceptions, but he's going to throw that ball like crazy. He'll probably get your yards.
He's going to throw for 400
yards. If Neighbors can get someone to play the other side, and he can get some one-on-one, and he can outrun people that just catch the floater, you know what I mean? Like maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
the one thing is, if you pick in the top 10 for like 6 years, you're eventually going to get some good players. It's just the way it works. Even if you screw it up some years, it's just the way it works. If you pick that high over a long period of time, you're going to wake up one day. This happened to Detroit. They were bad for so long, and then they woke up one day and they made a good bunch of good first round picks, and all of a sudden here they come.
Yep, it's true.
You got to go through some shit though to get to that point.
Yeah, real shit. Mike, thanks for joining the show today. Make sure you guys go and follow Mike at Mike Gil Show on all of his platforms, on YouTube especially. He's right here on YouTube as well. We just mentioned everybody's watching YouTube now, so go give Mike a subscription over there at Mike Gil Show. Mike, thank you for joining in, man. We'll talk to you again next week. All right, brother?
Yeah. Good to you're back. Take a break. Stop traveling for 2 weeks.
I'll see you.
All right, see you, Mike.
Mike. Good stuff there from Mike Gil joining the show on Birds 365. We'll have Brandon Lee Goutton coming up in about 8 minutes. Good segment there, though, Johnny Mac on the NFC.
Yeah, we kept him late. I feel bad, but
that's
whatever,
it. Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, we did. I looked up and I'm like, oh shit, it's already done.
Oh, shit.
But no, good stuff on the NFC East. I will say that Travis Hunter to New York, which I think is likely, by the way. I think he's gonna probably be there at 3. I mean, maybe.
I think Cleveland's gonna take Sanders.
I saw a report last night. Now, again, it's one of those times of the year you don't know what report is actually a real report and what's hearsay. But I saw a report last night that Cleveland's interested in trading out. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to juice.
Well,
there's a lot of gamesmanship.
Maybe I'm not giving Andrew Berry because I like Andrew a lot, and he's a lot smarter. So maybe he wants to trade out. But again, there's so much. The owners involved out there. It's not. I think everybody thinks everybody's in the same ecosystem. And they're not. And that's one of the biggest advantages the Eagles have. There occasionally Jeffrey Lurie will stick his nose in. He likes to talk about, Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and Russell Wilson. And occasionally he'll wait. You saw him with Cooper. He's very excited. But everybody liked Cooper with the Eagles. Occasionally, but there are other owners who want to get involved, especially when it involves a quarterback. Daniel Snyder was the worst. I mean, he would literally go in last minute, upset the whole board they had. So not everybody's the same, and Andrew's dealing with some things out in Cleveland that the Eagles don't have to deal with.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think it would be the smart move to trade up. So trade out, excuse me. And that seems like an Andrew Berry move, but that doesn't mean he can do it or he's allowed to do it.
Right. That's the bigger concern there. We'll see what ends up happening. Let's go to 2 super chats. Vulnerable Vitality. John, I had to shred Vulnerable Vitality yesterday because he's a Missouri guy, and he was roasting me because they beat Bama in basketball earlier in the season, and then they got bounced in round 1 by Drake. So I had to shred him yesterday after the show. Vulnerable, what's up, brother? He says, hey, John, for Goedert, 2026 third rounder and a 6th this year. Use that plus some more capital to trade up for Tyler Warren. I'm fucking with you. Just wanted to see you get fired up this morning. All love for you guys.
Yeah, you ain't getting 2 things. You ain't getting the 3rd rounder for Dallas Goedert. And he ain't getting up far enough to get Warren. So
no, I think he's saying package Goedert, a 3rd and a 6th.
Oh, I see.
To go up.
Again, you're not getting a Dallas Goedert trade till after June 1st, so it'll be about future stuff, not this year. If they trade him pre-June 1st, they lose $9.5 million of cap space. That's pretty significant. If they trade him after June 1st, they actually gain $4 million, a little bit over $4 million.
Right.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be focused on Dallas Goedert moving before the draft. If it's a trade, just doesn't make a lot of sense from a financial standpoint.
Right. JD3 checks in. Vulnerable. Thank you, brother. Thank you, JD3. He says, J-Mac, Cena is so much better on the mic than Cody. They won't even let him have a promo.
Yeah, it sucks. I agree.
Ready for Cena to get to 17 at Mania. I did watch Cena threatening the WWE world to ruin wrestling on Monday. I thought that was pretty good.
What they're concerned about is people cheering Cena.
Well, yeah, you heard when he came out and everybody started to cheer, and then they like, oh, we remember we have to boo, and then they boo him. He's too big of a star, John. They made him too big of a star. The heel thing is, although I will say this, and I'm just an objective, newer viewer. I think he's a great heel. I think he's
great. He's great at everything.
Yeah,
he was a great. People forget, he hasn't been a heel in 20 plus years, but he has been a heel, and he was a better heel than he was a babyface. But he's so good on the mic, if you're having that sort of battle, he's going to cook Cody Rhodes, as JD says. So, they're trying to protect Cody, and they want the proper reaction. And my thing is that, like, who cares? Who cares? If you tell the good story and you get to where you want to go, and I hope they put the belt on Cena for one last time, and then you could have him lose it back before he retires. And I think traditionally the baby faces are always better with the chase than defending anyway. I think it makes Cody a bigger star, but they're definitely trying to protect, and they know if they let Cena go off, they know people are going to like it. It's just the reality of 2025 versus 1975. In 1975, you're a heel. The people did what they were supposed to do. In 2025, they think heels are cool, and they don't want that reaction.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been enjoying some of the stuff I've watched on it. The one thing I disagree with you vehemently on, and this might change with more watching of it. I freaking love the Cody Rhodes theme song. I freaking love it.
Well, everybody loves it. But when you hear it so much, it's like anything.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like after a couple of years, or after WrestleMania, and you hear it.
Yeah, you'll grow to hate it. You'll if you stick around, you'll grow to hate it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. You hear the same song on the radio a million times. You may like it, and then it starts to piss you off. I've heard it too many times. That's it. Yeah, but people love it. I'm definitely in the minority there. But yeah, to JD's point though, if they let Cena go, if they take the leash off, he would cook Cody Rhodes. Cook him. He used to cook The Rock. I mean, he is phenomenal on the mic.
Overall, you think Triple H doing a good job?
Oh yeah, he's doing a phenomenal job.
I watched it. They are. I said the WWE fans, like in the chat before, don't take for granted how good their media operation is. I know you might not like watch on their YouTube and stuff. They're unbelievable on YouTube. One of the biggest sports channel in all of YouTube.
I think it's the biggest. I think it's number one.
It is number one sports channel in all of YouTube. Over 100 million subs, and some of their content is unbelievable. They did like a 4-hour thing they put out the other week on the whole Roman Reigns and bloodline with Cena. Then they did like a behind the scenes thing with Triple H at the Royal Rumble this year, which was so cool to see him interacting with the production staff and stuff. It was cool, really cool content, but good stuff there. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the offseason. We might have to spend a little bit of time on wrestling. Deshay's chirping. That's all right. People are always going to chirp, but people do like it. So good stuff there. Let's get to our commercial break. We have BLJ coming up next here on Birds 365. Thanks, everybody.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Wednesday edition of the show here, and we're joined now by Brandon Lee Goutton of Bleeding Green Nation. BLJ, welcome to the show, man. How you doing this Wednesday morning?
Good. How's it going, guys?
Good to see you, BLG. I guess we'll get it started this morning about the draft. Some top 30 visits recently. You know, the Eagles' recent history says they're going to draft some guys from their top 30 visits. So before we get into some of the most recent names, what's your feeling on these things? You've been doing this. You've been tracking this for a long time. Do people overblow them? Do people underrate them? Where are you just on the whole paying attention to who's coming in?
Yeah, I think it's really relevant. Obviously, last year, I think it was like Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Hunt, Anaya Smith, and Johnny Wilson, at least. If I'm missing some, let me know. But I think, the Eagles use these visits to learn information, especially, look at some of the prospects they bring in the past. It could be someone with, some medical questions or some character questions or, just getting to know more about these prospects and kind of filling in the information. And so while I guess, Howie Roseman himself, I remember years ago, said sometimes they'll bring in players that they don't have interest in just to kind of, the subterfuge of it all and smokescreen of it all. But I think for the most part, it's really players they are genuinely interested in and want to get more information on and would kind of rather have that information than totally just try to trick everyone.
Yeah, the other thing I think that's relevant on it, BLG, is players seem to come even later in years. If they don't get them in the draft or their names to watch in free agency or, stuff like that. So it's interesting.
Kenyon Green, Dorian Thompson Robinson.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Yeah.
Two examples right there. So I always try and keep my eyes on or keep the names jotted down and remember them because the Eagles like who they like and they stick with them. At least it seems that they do. So good stuff there. BLG, the Giants made a move yesterday. They picked up Russell Wilson. They also picked up Jameis Winston. Are they getting closer to relevancy in your estimation, BLG?
Yeah, I really don't understand the need to sign both. I thought the Jameis signing was a good one for them in terms of, okay, here you add a guy who can be kind of your bridge quarterback, or decent backup if the rookie, plays well. I mean, I don't really know. It seems to me like Joe Shane and Brian Dable are operating like a couple people on the hot seat, and they're kind of worried about making themselves as good as they can kind of be this season. I'm sure they'll still draft someone if they can. We'll see. I think that's still a key part of their success, or not, or their hope potential for success, or what they would need to do. I don't think they can just sign these guys and be like, all right, that's our plan, and not draft someone. But yeah, I think signing both of them is weird to me.
I'm with you, BLG. And Howie hates when this is brought up, but and he often says, I'm not on scholarship, but he is on scholarship. And everybody else, not everybody, but so many other GMs in this league have to GM for their jobs. And that makes them make bad decisions. I think Jeffrey Lurie is such an underrated part of the Eagles' success. Just the fact that he's patient. He allows people to learn from their mistakes for the most part. Now, he's like everybody else with coaches. If you don't reach expectations, there's got to be some scapegoats. But I think when you compare him to the rest of the league, huge advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, not to mention the cash spending either, which has been pretty high.
Yeah.
A little bit different this offseason, but in years past, certainly Eagles ranking as like the #1 team or right up there. So yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree, John. I think that's kind of been like underappreciated in a way. Just for the context of the other owners and not being always able to have that perspective, not experiencing that Eagles fans. But yeah, I mean, I think Lurie is a huge part of why this team has been to multiple Super Bowls and then won 2 since he's been here.
All right, let's get back to those visits because I do want to talk about the players specifically. The first 4 that was sort of unveiled, and we might miss some other people. This is not a complete list by any estimation, but they were all offensive linemen. And then over the past couple days, the BC edge rusher Ezraku, as I butcher his name, I apologize to the Ezraku family. SMU edge rushers sort of got a little bit. Elijah Roberts sort of got a little bit of versatility. Some people look at him and say he can move inside. Got a little bit more size than maybe they have right now, at least projected to have. And then the most interesting one to me was a cornerback, Maxwell Harrison, simply because he's a pretty high-level prospect, sort of like a bridge pick, maybe back of the first round, top of the second round. And they just drafted Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, even if you want to go back to Keely Ringo.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at it just from the theme, offensive lineman, defensive front, and then you have a corner, does that tell you anything?
Yeah, the corner was interesting to me too. I mean, I guess if there's just a cornerback available to you and he's clearly head and shoulders the best player, then sure, like if that's just that obvious. But given the construction of that room, it is a little, funny to see that. Edge rusher, obvious need for the Eagles here. When you lose Brandon Graham, you lose Josh Sweat, Bryce Huff, who knows what his future holds here. I think it would be, would definitely be nice to add someone there, even though you do sign Josh Uche, and then you have Azeez Ojulari coming in here. Still think you would like to add to that position there. And Ezraku, yeah, I think that's it. He certainly, I think, like, it seems like a decent fit in terms of like value and need. He's been linked to the Eagles here. We've seen in mock drafts, I think, like dating back to in season. So
yeah,
interested in that one. And then the offensive tackle thing. Like the Eagles have been obviously wanting to draft an offensive tackle in recent years, and I don't think just because Lane Johnson, signed this extension and said he hopes to play, like 3 more years, although he also said he's taking it year to year, means the Eagles are like gonna be out on that. I still think they're very much gonna draft someone who might be able to play right tackle in the future, and at the very least might be able to compete for right guard now.
Yeah. Connerly was an interesting name from that perspective, because I think And we've been through this before with the Eagles. If you look at the Cam Jurgens pick, but to me, it's a lot different, even at 32 versus whatever Cam was. I think it was 51. I think, and people weren't necessarily happy about the Cam Jurgens pick because I think everybody wanted Nakobe Dean at the time, and it was a luxury pick, and he didn't play as a rookie. Josh Connerly would be a luxury pick. He ain't playing over Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, but boy, that'd be a nice thing to put in your back pocket if he falls to 32. Do you think people would be patient and understand that type of pick?
I think again, coming off of the Super Bowl helps a little bit in terms of that, but it is a little, and I think it's fair. I'm not saying it never makes sense to draft a guy who you kind of have to store away an offensive line. I get that. But like if we're evaluating, like the pick and everything, like there is value lost. And when, like Cam Jurgens doesn't play a whole year, doesn't mean his career won't work out. But like part of the model, especially for this team moving forward, is you have to rely on some cheaper contributors. Mm-hmm. And there's value in having depth players, and I get that, but you don't necessarily have to have someone start. But when they're not for a whole year, like there's opportunity cost there, and you've lost some of that value that you would otherwise have if you could get a contributor ideally. So I personally think, it's reasonable to draft some of these offensive linemen and high even and stash them away and have them in the pipeline for that when they are needed, either as depth or in the future. You have it there because I think it's even Howie Roseman has alluded to in the past. It's kind of, you don't really want to rely on free agency for offensive linemen, especially as much, just because the market kind of gets out of control there. And also you can't rely on that. Like good offensive linemen typically aren't making it to the market with the frequency that players at other positions are. So ultimately, I think, stashing players there, that makes sense. And,
by the way, to Howie's point, BLG, Will Fry's got $88 million.
Well, and Aaron Banks too, right?
Yeah, Aaron Banks. Yeah,
insane money. And they just signed Kendall Lamb, who ostensibly could be their swing tackle this season. But you just don't want to. He's also what, 33? You just don't want to bank on that too. You still want to add to that position.
Yeah. I get a kick out of it because Jeff Kerr's on the show a lot. He's a Penn State guy, loves Penn State. And I think, Saquon Barkley's coming off the most historic running back season, literally in NFL history, broke the record. And he got the big extension. Everybody made a big deal out of it, rightfully so. And he's still woefully. Penn State offensive linemen are getting paid $88 million. Like Will Fries can go to Penn State and build a new football room. Saquon can't. It doesn't make sense on a certain level. So I agree with Howie's philosophy of, it's much better to draft and develop offensive linemen. And we'll see how that shakes out. You mentioned a little bit about Bryce Huff. So I want to get your temperature on, the 50-50 thing. And I've asked you this before, but as weeks move on, it starts to get a little bit clearer. So we'll use that 50-50 sort of measuring stick. Is Bryce Huff going to be back? Is Dallas Goedert going to be back? And then with the draft, are they trading out at 32, sticking, or trading up, which I highly doubt. But for you, BLG, where are you on that temperature right now in those three subjects?
Yeah, I think with Huff, I keep coming back to, I don't think Vic Fangio wants to play this guy. So what?
That's a problem.
What's he here doing? What's the value of the roster spot for a guy that Vic Fangio simply just doesn't trust to be on the football field? It's not just up to him, obviously. There's people above him, including Howie Roseman. So that's kind of, the push and the pull there. But I just think it's a kind of a hard time when, again, not gonna, maybe it's like the James Bradbury thing from last year where
that'd be rough.
Stored away for the whole year. But we'll see. I guess he gets the offseason at least to kind of see how that maybe shakes out, assuming there's no move made before that. With Goedert, I think, as time goes on, would seem to me that teams aren't jumping to get him. They aren't saying, "Hey, Eagles, we need Dallas Goedert. We're ready to give you, draft capital or whatever for Dallas Goedert. And to me, that would seemingly hurt Dallas Goedert's leverage and his market. So I mean, based on everything we're hearing, it has been sounding like it's not likely he'll be back, but I just don't see really how it makes sense for either side at this point for a parting of ways there, especially because the Eagles don't have anything that you can really rely on behind him that you feel like really good about, long-term or short-term. Grant Calcaterra, he's on a one-year contract. Harrison Bryant, same thing. Kylan Granson, same thing. And then if you draft someone, okay, but that's not a sure thing. And then what was the last one, John?
32. Well, are they moving out or sticking? Moving up, which I highly doubt, but where are you there? I can't assume they're sticking at 32. I just can't believe it.
So, I mean, yeah, it's always a safe bet. They're going to move somewhere. Although last year they didn't. But I think in 2018, they traded back, but they also were light on draft picks in that year because they had made some trades, including the Ronald Darby trade, and the Jay Ajayi trade. They made some moves where they were kind of lighter on draft picks than they usually were, and obviously only ended up making 5 picks in 2018. So they do have a lot of picks over these next 2 years, or at least, if you include the projected comp picks in there. So not going to say that means they won't trade down, but there could be less of a, urgency to do that than there was the last time they had won the Super Bowl. I guess I'll actually lean towards right now. Well, I was going to say a trade up just because, if there's not a major trade up, when there's a guy they like a couple picks ahead of them, I think
targeted.
They have all that ammo. Maybe they just say, hey, we really like this guy. Let's not mess around. Let's just go get him. So that'll be my lean right now.
All right. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I'd prefer a trade up than a trade down. But,
I agree with you. BLJ, looking at obviously the guys we just talked about that left, and then we added in a couple. Maybe Bryce Huff doesn't do much this year. Maybe Goedert is gone. How much is the gap closed? BLJ, Washington became a good team last year. Dallas is getting Dak Prescott back. What's the gap look like in the NFC East? One of my bold predictions for the year was that the Eagles would be the first team since 2004 to repeat. Now, maybe I'm wearing Eagle-colored glasses. How do you see the NFC East standings right now?
It's a dangerous game, right? Because it just never happens. It never, for whatever reason, since 2004, teams just do not repeat in this division. But I agree with you in terms of if there's a team that's going to do it, this one has a good chance, I think, not just because of their prospects, but because of I'm not super buying a lot of these other teams here in the division. I mean, like Brian Schottenheimer, like, are we kidding? Like, are we joking? Like, we just kind of glossed over that. Like, I
would have bet the ranch on Kellen Moore going back to Dallas. I don't get anything Jerry does at this point. I don't get it. I'm with you.
And there's a lot about that roster. Like I'm not crazy about. Dak's another year older. He's coming off yet another injury. I think they'll be better certainly than what they were when he was hurt. But I don't know about that team. They have some holes. Zach Martin's retiring. They lose DeMarcus Lawrence, who's a big part of their defense. We'll see on them. The Giants, wake me. Like I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston has the Eagles shaking in their boots. Maybe they get a rookie quarterback who could help them in the long term. We'll see. And then Washington, I think he's kind of had a bit of a bad offseason. I think they kind of, it's a little bit of an Icarus syndrome here where like they flew a little too close to the sun. I think Adam
Peters is too focused on his old players.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially when you look at the Javon Kinlaw contract, that's an insane contract. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense other than having, the nostalgia or familiarity with that guy. And I just think I get the premise of wanting to take advantage of the rookie contract window. I understand that conceptually, but I think you can do that while also making moves that kind of build you a core for the long term. And the Commanders are adding all these guys who are like 30 plus and might have their best football behind them. And I think they're doing that thinking like, hey, we were in the championship game. We're right there. We're just a couple pieces away. It's not how the NFL works, like necessarily. You don't just pick up from where you left off last season. So I think they could kind of be in for a bit of a rude awakening this season where I still, I like Jayden Daniels a lot. I think he might be the best quarterback in this division for years to come, potentially, if he continues to, progress. So I'm not going to discount them and say they're not going to be good, but the rest of the pieces around him, I don't love that as much.
PLJ, you perfectly said what I think about them. Now, I put the Cowboys at number 2 in the NFC East. Am I crazy for that one?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, because again, I think they're going to, Dak could bounce back.
It's going to be better than Cooper Rush.
Yeah, and they had 7 wins
sure.
last year. I'm like, all right, will they get to 10 and the Commander or the 11 and Commanders come back to 10? I could see it.
And then I think, who they draft is going to be really important too.
Yeah.
I think they have a potential big opportunity to either add a second receiver there, which they've sorely needed, to pair with CeeDee Lamb, or maybe they take the Boise State running back and maybe, that's like a little bit of a Zeke boost for their offense in the short term. Maybe not, I don't know about the best long-term pick for them. So yeah, depending on what they do the rest of the offseason, I could see them making a jump certainly from where they were last year.
Speaking of Cooper Rush, he got a damn nice deal as a backup quarterback, which I don't get that either. And that's a good organization, Baltimore typically. So I'm not.
The Cowboys need a new backup now because it's really no one behind. It's Will Greer behind.
There's a lot of teams that need backup quarterbacks. That is a tough position. What's your thought on backup quarterback? Because the Eagles are tangent and obviously going to a very young, unproven backup quarterback and Tanner McKee. Typically, that's not their history. They value backup quarterbacks and have valued for obvious reasons. Are you okay with that? Because I go back to Kellen Moore. One thing I agreed with Kellen Moore when he almost got excited when he talked about Kenny Pickett. It was like the operation. He loves the operation. It was clean. That's what you want from a backup quarterback. It sort of resonated with me. And you want some experience and starting experience. It's not going to be great if you're playing your backup quarterback anywhere. So what are your feelings in making that move?
I've been willing to turn this job over to Tanner McKee. I think earlier, certainly than the Eagles were. I mean, I thought Tanner McKee generally outplayed Kenny Pickett last year from the offseason practices and the preseason games. I know Pickett has the experience, but and we saw it when he did get in limited playing time. But Tanner McKee can play. I think that is very much apparent to me. He doesn't look like he doesn't belong. So he does.
He's smart. I'll say that.
Smart.
Snapper kid.
I think he looks composed too out there. It's not like he's rattled. The moment doesn't look too big for him from what we've seen. I think having some of the actual game experience, that certainly serves him well. And really, one of my biggest complaints about the Pickett addition last year is you're kind of blocking his development a little bit in terms of him being able to get a lot of these reps with the second team. Because as a rookie, especially, he's playing on the third string. He's barely getting reps because we know the third string quarterback barely gets reps for the Eagles, especially when they weren't practicing as much a couple years ago. And then the guys working with are, guys who won't even be on practice squads. It's hard to, I feel like, even evaluate the quarterback when guys aren't running the right route necessarily, or they're dropping passes.
Or the backup center can't snap.
Yeah, the backup center can't snap. And all of a sudden, give Tanner McKee A.J. Brown, he's throwing a great back shoulder pass to him, and A.J. almost makes a crazy one-handed catch in the end zone. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see this offseason as Tanner gets to work with more exclusively that second team unit and get a lot more reps than he did certainly last year. I'm really, really excited to see what he looks like this offseason.
Yeah, going to be interesting with Tanner McKee. BLJ, the Eagles have made a lot of bargain signings. We've dubbed it the Timu offseason. Johnny Mack has here on Birds 365. Who's your favorite Timu signing? Who's your favorite bargain signing that you look at and you say, that guy has a chance to contribute to this team? Not saying he's gonna, but he has a chance. Who's your favorite of the bargain signings?
Yeah, I'll go with the chalk pick and say Azeez Ojulari. That's obviously the most
I thought you were going to go with Charlie Hewlett.
I'm going with Uche over Ojulari.
Yeah. Because I think you look at, he's only 24. That's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
One of these guys the Eagles brought in for a pre-draft visit. I think it was the SMU guy.
Elijah Roberts.
Yeah, he's going to be 24 this season. Think about that. That's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, there are rookies coming into the league that are 24.
Right. So, I don't think Azeez Ojulari is going to turn into, the star and totally take off. But I do think that he could be, just based on his track record, assuming he can stay healthy, which has been the issue. He'll give you solid, good production. And maybe he can be like something of what Josh Sweat was for you last year. Not this like, oh my gosh, amazing player, but just someone who's okay, that guy is solid. And when you're only signing it for that much money, like you did, like that's a pretty good outcome. So I think I feel good about adding him to that pass rush there, and feeling like there's a good, even though he's young and may be able to get better, there's at least a floor there you can kind of feel good about, especially at a position of need and importance there. And maybe, who knows, maybe he does get here and he can take off a little bit and be something more than he has been in New York.
I like it. Carpet bombing Howie at edge rusher with Aziz. You picked Aziz. I picked Aziz with the Temu. Zander picked Josh Uche. Somebody else picked Josh Uche as well.
I like Uche because he had the bigger upside. Like even on the
PFF it could be.
side,
It could be. It could be
highest graded years on PFF were really pretty impressive. I'm not saying he's going to be that, but I like Vic's ability to maybe pull that out of him.
Yeah, it could be either or. That's what the Eagles, I assume, are hoping one hits. But if I were to say to you, BLG, that the edge rushing rotation on this team is going to be Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Azeez Ojulari, and Josh Uche, or Josh Uche and Azeez Ojulari, are you comfortable with that? I can't imagine the Eagles starting day one with that group. Am I crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Uche has to like make the roster first. I want to see.
So does Ojulari. I mean,
sure.
Well, if the fate of Huff is what you said, it opens up another spot for one of those guys.
Yeah, it
absolutely.
opens up to both of them. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, I think that's kind of where he's more at, especially because he's an active, he's a healthy scratch for the Super Bowl. Yeah. So I mean, ideally I would like to add, a rookie in there too. That doesn't solve everything. And depending on you would really like to add to that room, and you can play defensive tackle too, is Calais Campbell. I think that just makes a lot of sense still, especially with such a young room and you're losing Brandon Graham. I think adding a veteran in there who, again, can also, he can play inside, outside. I think that just makes a lot of sense for them because they need really they could afford to add both, some depth. Yeah, both spots. So why not add someone who can do both?
Yeah. I like that thought. I like that thought because they need, and that's right. A lot of people said about Roberts, he can play inside and outside. So maybe that's some of the thinking of bringing him in. Brandon could move inside. And they're very young. I mean, they just signed Kendall Lamb. I think he's the fourth player. Is it 4, Zander? Over 30 players, or is it 5?
Well, now it's 5, right? Because they signed. Yeah, it's 5 now.
I mean, this is a very young team. Talented, but you lose Brandon Graham, you lose Darius Slay, 2 veteran leaders. Don't you need some old guys? I like your Calais Campbell. I think you need that balance. It's a young man's league. I'd rather have the young, talented than the guy who's going to be here for 1 year. But you need some of those guys.
Right. The engine's got to be young, but I think they are a little bit sleeping on the value of a veteran as well.
I think they're definitely aware of that. I think that's something. Like, you want to have a veteran in a room, given like position room, ideally. I think that's kind of what they did a little bit with the Dory Jackson signing there. He's approaching 30. Right. So I do think they would like add someone at some point, even if he doesn't make the roster. But for a training camp, you kind of have that veteran in the room. So I mean, maybe it's Campbell. I think again that makes too much sense. It's crazy to me. Like, you look up Calais Campbell's Pro Football Reference page, and this guy's still producing year in, year out. He had 5 sacks last year. He's going to be he was 38. That's crazy.
He's an amazing player. And he has been for a very, very long time. At Brandon Goutton, make sure you follow BLG on the X platform. Read him at Bleeding Green Nation. Does a tremendous job. If you want to keep up with all the pre-draft visits, they do a good job over there of doing that. His staff, one-stop shop, I always say, for Eagles news. So go there with your morning coffee. Does a tremendous job. And I'll end it with, a lot of talk. Jimmy Johnson was on with us on JAKIB Sports talking about how good the Eagles have been with the draft. And they have been. The last 4 drafts have been pretty damn good. But in a lot of ways, BLG, I think last year's draft kind of broke people with the expectation that, well, we're going to get help right away with Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. I still think that's an outlier. They've done it in the past with Jalen Carter, but that's a top 10 pick. Devontae Smith, that's a top 10 pick. They're not picking in the top 10. Guys like Nolan Smith, guys like Cam Jurgens, we mentioned, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis. It usually takes a little bit of time. The Eagles are counting on, Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown and Kaylee Ringo to step up this year in year 3. Can you really just count on immediate help when you start at 32? No, and you're shaking your head.
You can't. I mean, it can happen. Like you're saying, like we can acknowledge that, yes, but that can't be the plan, right? Like hope is not a strategy. You can't just say we're going to draft someone and that's going to be our day one answer. Definitely. You have to allow for that possibility for sure. And if it does happen, great. That's awesome. But you can't have that be your plan A. That could be your plan B, plan C, whatever. But you have to invest in other options and give yourself other avenues. And again, that's like why you signed Kendall Lamb, because, okay, if we don't get a tackle or if we draft a tackle and he's not necessarily ready to play right away, well, at least we have this guy who can kind of give us some baseline of what we want here. And kind of same thing, again, like Dory Jackson, some of these kind of stopgap options there where you kind of just raise the floor and, you just kind of set that expectation there to have that, and you can't just rely on a rookie, because when you do that, you leave yourself open to something like the Eagles did in the past with like Jalen Reagor, or Jalen Reagor is going to be our answer right away as a rookie. We lack a vertical threat, and it's obviously there's other reasons why that didn't work out, but one of them is that you can't just rely on a player like that early.
BLG, great stuff, man. I'm going to end it with a compliment from one of our viewers for you. Leon Banks says, this dude's mustache is insane. And I'm going to take that as a compliment right there. Leon, thank you, brother. BLG, well done on the mustache. Well done on the Eagles takes. As always, brother, we appreciate you being here. We'll talk to you again next week, all right?
See you guys.
Thanks, bud.
There's BLG joining the show here on Birds 365. Well done by Leon. Well done by BLG here on the show. 2 great guests today. Johnny Mack, and we move another day closer to the NFL draft. I'm with you on that last comment you made. I think the Eagles are going to draft well. I do. I'm not convinced that they're going to get a guy who comes in and impacts them.
That's my concern. I mean, the assumption that it's I think they're going to draft well too. They have a good personnel department.
Right.
It's not just Howie, it's an entire department. And I know most of those guys, and I've gotten to talk, and they're really smart football people. I think they're going to draft well, but it usually takes some time. And I think, Nolan Smith is an example of that. Nakobe Dean is an example. Cam Jurgens, it usually takes some time. Last year it didn't, and that's great, but that's rare. And I hope it's not a strategy. As BLG said, Howie has used that phrase a lot. And that's why they are signing all the insurance policies, and there will be more, whether it's at safety after the compensatory pick formula is out of the equation, or defensive tackle. You need those insurance policies. And the Eagles will do that. They've done that, but I don't know if you can expect immediate help at number 32, even with a targeted trade up, as BLG said, 27, 28. It's a lot tougher than, you don't just say, well, Jalen Carter,
right,
top 10 pick, who should have been a top 5 pick.
Yeah. And Quinyon and Coop, I mean, let's be real, they're outliers. I mean, even Nolan, it took Nolan a year and a half, to
exactly.
arrive.
Exactly. And he was the 30th pick. So remember that.
Yeah. Going to be interesting to see what happens with the Eagles in the draft this year, what they do to recoup some of the talent that they've lost. But Yeah, I thought Jimmy's breakdown was good. His interview was really good, John. I mean, he obviously knows football well. He's not been successful at every level, but it was cool listening to him kind of dive into some of the Eagles stuff. So I thought he was spot on with a lot of it. We'll see what the Birds end up doing in the NFL draft. 29 days and 10 hours away. So get ready, everybody. We'll be covering it wall to wall here on JAKIB, as we always do. So we'll be looking forward to that. Johnny Mac, what's your final thoughts on today's Wednesday edition of Birds 365?
I believe, I wanted
better?
to bring this up. I believe next Wednesday, if I make it, we're all day to day. I believe next Wednesday will be officially the 1000th show of Birds 365. So I'm going to lobby on air,
Wow,
Zander Krause, that you give something away to one of our loyal listeners.
All right, I will do that
on Wednesday of next week. I believe I have to check that to be sure. You got to check that, but
I think you're close. I know we're in the 900s, deep into the 900s. I can look at the. Let me see if I can do it here on the air. 995. Today's 995th episode of Birds 360.
Yeah, I never know if they add it after the show ends or
they add it typically before. Once I put it in the playlist, the only thing I'd have to look in this playlist is there any video in this playlist that's not the live show, like a clip? I don't think so. Like we had the Birds 365 special from New Orleans, but that counts. That was our Birds that day. So 995. I'm going to assume my playlist is right because I do keep up on it as much as I can. 995. Yeah, that's big time right there, Johnny Mac. 1,000 eps deep, brother. That's impressive work by you.
Yeah, well, I'm proud to reach 1,000. If you would have told me we reached 1,000 at number one, I probably would have said, probably
the odds aren't likely.
Yeah, the odds aren't likely. So it's a Quignon situation. But and we keep getting better and more popular, I think. So yeah, a little bit of love for the listeners who give me some shit. I give you guys some shit, but I do appreciate the fact that you guys listen, because if you didn't, we wouldn't be here for 1,000.
Absolutely. And John, a lot of people listening, man. A lot of people, whether they make themselves known or not, a lot of people are listening to Birds 365 and what you have to say. And here's a funny part. Like I this part of my job always cracks me up because I crunch numbers all day on JAKIB and figure out, what shows are doing the best and how to grow more. I always get a kick out of this. So we just have a Super Bowl run, right? I mean, we just go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. And I'm on the Birds 365 podcast. March has been our most listened to podcast month in the last 5 months. And all the months were great. But I always get a kick. I'm like, how the hell does March have more podcasts?
I tell you, the off season's far more compelling. I say that that's a tough sell, I think, to people. Because when I did football 24/7 locally, that was one of the things you get pushback. Well, nobody wants to talk about football when the Phillies are doing well, and I'm like, yeah, they do.
Yeah, it might not be as big as people think, but John, this show's proven that. I mean, come on, we've gone 5. This is going to be our 5th year of doing shows all off season, and we've never had crazy low numbers. So this show has proven that is fake news, John.
Yeah, and I still think if you talk to most old school radio programmers, because I've talked to a lot of them over the years, and they're like, well, no, you just come back, and it's like, well, that's why you guys suck, and everybody's going to YouTube. Not just us, as I mentioned. YouTube is now the number one television platform in the country, according to Nielsen, by the way.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
I don't want to eat too many flowers on that, but I remember back in 2019 when Krause was doing JAKIB, you were already working with us to some extent, doing a lot of radio programs. I said to him, let's get on YouTube. I don't know how we'll get success, but we got to get our content on there and let it live. So I don't want to eat my cake, but it's pretty impressive what YouTube has grown into.
Yeah. Number one, and this is over traditional networks, CBS, and all forms of CBS, like CBS, Paramount,
Right.
Warner Brothers, Discovery, NBC Universe, blah, blah, blah. YouTube gets more than all of them, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly changing by the day. And they're increasing while the old school sort of Tiffany networks are decreasing. And I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
No. Are you a YouTube watcher, John? Like, are you one of those people or no?
I'm not, but I'm old, but I don't watch a lot of television. And when I do watch when we were talking about during the season, I just don't have time.
Yeah. During the season,
when
I didn't watch shit during the season.
And when I do, I usually watch something on Netflix, and I usually watch it, if I got some time on a weekend, which is rare. That's me. But I've noticed that, especially younger people, and Mike brought it up today. It's like they don't even watch television.
Yeah, that's me, John. I got a TV. I talk into my remote YouTube. Boop, pops it right up, and I click on stuff, and that's what I watch. All my hobbies and everything. And I got to be honest, that's the reason that I'm cutting up to date on wrestling. I go on YouTube, and there's great videos, and I'm like, dang, that's interesting. I got to watch that, and boom, there it is.
And the only thing I do watch is something on Netflix or probably wrestling. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, good stuff.
So
YouTube growing like a weed, man. I'm happy to have a presence there, and you're heard all over YouTube, Johnny Mac. So well done by you, brother. John, great show, man. We will 100% do that giveaway on the 1000th episode. That is the only time you've asked me to do that in 1000 episodes. So I will honor that request, and we will do that for the great people of Birds 365.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate it. See, I'm helping you all out, and I'm getting you some free stuff for 1,000. But you got to be here. You got to
be here. You absolutely have to be here. Johnny Mac, good stuff, man. We appreciate you doing it. 995th episode in the books. Well done, Johnny Mac. We'll talk to you tomorrow, brother.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right. There's John McMullen, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town, the inside voice here on JAKIB Sports on the Philadelphia Eagles. Well done. Great discussion there, too, on 1,000 shows. That's pretty unbelievable that we've reached 1,000 shows. Obviously, I haven't been here for all of them. I think Jody was up to 700. 740, 750, maybe somewhere in that range when I started taking over. So pretty cool what we've done here. But again, as John mentioned, it's all you guys. Me and John can debate about hockey to nobody. You guys show up every day and you make it possible. So we appreciate that very much. Thanks all of you guys. Great shows today. KCA wants a giveaway. Not today, KCA. I'm going to do one tomorrow and I'm going to do one Friday. Tomorrow and Friday, I'm going to do giveaways. All right. And then we'll do one next week. I will honor what John said next week with next Wednesday's show being the 1000th show of Birds 365. Pretty unbelievable. And we'll do a giveaway then. And the other thing is, if you're listening right now and you like podcasts, I would encourage you to go listen to the podcast, subscribe, leave a review over there because our podcast numbers are through the roof. I mean, we're a YouTube-based show. Majority of our viewership comes through YouTube, but our podcast numbers are impressive for a podcast. A lot, getting podcast downloads is a hard thing to do. Getting YouTube views is a hard thing to do. I always tell you guys, people are in here sometimes they chirp, Phil, you only have 50K subs versus other people have 100K. I'll put our YouTube metrics up with any of them. I've told you that, and I don't say that with disrespect to any of the guys, but. Even, the great Mark Holmes, the great Philly Fire, I love them all. We get a lot of views on JAKIB, all right? Now, here's the thing. We don't glaze the team all the time. We have Celia, we have John, there's objectivity to it. So, a lot of viewers today are looking for a lot of glaze, all right? We don't get that. So, no, but it's funny. It's fun. It's good. It's a good time, and our numbers are electric thanks to all of you guys. But the podcast numbers going through the roof. Going through the roof. Think about this. I am 5,000 podcast downloads away from having our most listened to month of all time on podcasts. So pretty impressive there. The show is growing like crazy. One thing I have never done and would never do on JAKIB is buy bots. I think people do that, Sig Lord. It's very easy. You can type in buy YouTube subscribers and spend $100 and get like 20,000 subscribers. We've never bought one view, one metric, one subscriber, one thing. Everything is 100% organic. And actually, I'll go an even step further. We don't promote JAKIB. You know, we have ads on our shows. We have people. We don't promote. Like, I don't have a commercial for JAKIB. I don't have advertising for JAKIB. I don't have a billboard in the city. Hey, listen to JAKIB Sports for your Eagles content. We have none of that. So it's all organic. It's pretty cool to do it. All right. So thanks all of you guys. You guys are the freaking best. You guys are the freaking best. All right. Really, I mean it. Love all you guys. You guys are really great support. I mean, you're family. I say that all the time, and you guys are really family. And I appreciate it more than you guys know, I think. I do. I appreciate it a lot, but believe me, I think about it a lot. All right. Love you too, Sig Lord. Bombay, love you, brother. My boy Bombay. See, me, I got a little bone to pick. All right, with Bombay. You know, I'm buying shoes and I'm enjoying it. All right. I'm feeling good about my purchase. And Bombay's like, yo, dickhead, when you get to my age, you're not going to care about shoes. I'm like, no, Bombay, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that right now. But he's my boy. Bombay, appreciate you, bro. Hope you and your kids are doing well. Hope you and your family are doing well down there in Florida. But Chris Scott, Bird Gang Girl, my girl, Bombay, Sig Lord, Fly Eagles Fly, Philly Don. Yo, Philly Don Philly Don sends me yesterday a picture of him rocking a Kanga. Actually, the black and gold Kanga. Philly Don now rocking the Kanga. So Philly Don, welcome to the power of the Kanga. Okay? People, not everybody can do it. Not everybody can pull it off. Not everybody's going to like it. But let me tell you, when you put on that Kanga, there's something about the power it gives you. There's something about the power. It's like you become possessed with the power of the Kanga. Philly Don, welcome to the Kanga Club. All right. Well done by you, and it looked great on you in the picture. Not everybody's losing their hair. Yeah, Bob, go cry me a river. You know, you maybe improve your look a little bit, Bob, with a Kanga. All right? Hey, come on, Bob. Devin, my man, appreciate you, Dev. Brandon Howard, my boy. Brandon Howard, I got to be honest with you. All right? I like the name as Brandon Howard. I think you're more memorable as Brandon Howard than you were as Eagle Nest. Maybe that's just because I knew you originally as Brandon Howard, but I like the name, the new profile picture. It's memorable, brother. That's a good thing. You know, I always say people don't understand how meaningful profile pictures are. Like, people change out their profile pictures. You build up and when you have a profile picture, it becomes synonymous. People see it, they know it. Boom. I know that guy. You change it every week, and it's like, oh shit, I'm losing my identity a little bit. All right. But no, good stuff, everybody. Appreciate all you guys. Team who sells those 100K subplaques. Don't need it, Landon. I am not motivated by subplaques. I'm going to pull a Jalen Hurts on you guys. All right. I am motivated by the process every single day. What can I do today to improve JAKIB? What can I do today to make great shows? What can I do today to connect with the family members on JAKIB? What can I do today to give away? What can I do in the process to improve the company? I'm not worried about vanity metrics, results, finish lines, none of those things. All right. Thank you all. I love all you guys. Giveaways tomorrow and Friday on the show. All right. So stay tuned for those. And then 1,000 show coming up next Wednesday. We're going to do some giveaways for that. Never had Johnny Mac ask me for that. All right. Never. All right. Never had him ask me for that. So he said it. I'm going to honor it. I'm going to do it. All right. So appreciate all you guys. Love all you guys, my family. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you next time on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365. the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.